Chosen one. Stop scrolling for a moment. Heaven itself has paused everything around you. This is not coincidence. This is divine interruption. You are being addressed by name, called out from the noise of this world into a moment that will mark your timeline forever. The wind of God is shifting around you even as you breathe. There are seasons when human words fall short, and only the voice of the Spirit can pierce the fog that has surrounded your soul. This is one of those moments. You are not reading these words by chance. You are being summoned by heaven. For too long, you have been questioning whether God has forgotten your story. You have seen others rise while you remained still. You have prayed until your voice broke, fasted until your body trembled. And yet it seemed like heaven was silent. But hear this clearly. Heaven has never been silent about you. The silence was strategy. The pause was preparation. Every unanswered prayer was a setup for what is about to break forth. When God steps in, everything shifts, time bends, chains fall, and impossible doors open without warning. You've been marked since birth. That strange feeling of never fitting in, that deep ache for something greater, that constant inner pull toward light, even when surrounded by darkness, it was the evidence of your divine election. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out as a beacon of His power. You carry a heavenly signature that darkness cannot counterfeit. Even now, as these words reach your eyes, the Spirit of the Lord is hovering over your situation, preparing to breathe life into what looked lifeless. There is a holy trembling in the atmosphere because God has decided it is your time. Everything that tried to bury you is about to serve as the foundation of your testimony. You are standing in the prelude of a miracle that was written before the foundations of the earth. Heaven is not negotiating your deliverance. It has already been decreed. The storm you thought would drown you has become the path upon which you will walk to glory. Listen closely. Chosen one, there is a reason why the warfare intensified right before now. The darkness fought you hardest when it sensed your dawn approaching. That sudden heaviness, those nights where you wanted to give up, the endless fatigue in your spirit, all of it was resistance to the rising of your miracle. But God says, enough. Heaven has stepped in to defend what belongs to you. No weapon formed against you will stand. The battle you fought alone in silence has drawn divine attention, and reinforcement has been released. This is the moment where your spiritual vision must awaken. Do not measure your future by what you see now. The visible is temporary. The invisible is eternal. You may feel surrounded, but you are also being shielded. You may feel delayed, but you are divinely aligned. There is movement in the unseen realm, and though you cannot yet perceive it, your miracle is already in motion. Heaven is organizing what earth cannot comprehend. You see, when God steps in, He doesn't simply rearrange your circumstances. He redefines your identity. You are no longer the rejected one, the forgotten one, or the almost blessed one. You are the chosen carrier of breakthrough for your bloodline. The curse ends with you. The cycle breaks with you. The story changes because you finally believed when everyone else gave up. And now, the breath of the Almighty fills your lungs again. Your strength is being renewed. Hope is being resurrected. The chains of fear and fatigue are melting in the fire of His presence. You are standing under an open heaven, and the angels assigned to your destiny are moving swiftly, carrying answers to prayers you whispered years ago. As was written by David in the Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. The Spirit is saying to you, be still, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening in divine order. You don't need to fight for attention, justify your worth, or force open doors that heaven has already unlocked. You simply need to align your heart with faith. The same God who spoke galaxies into being is speaking resurrection over your name. Now, chosen one, take a breath and lift your eyes. Heaven is closer than you think. The ground beneath you may still tremble, but the glory rising within you is unshakable. This is your signal from eternity. God has stepped in. Your miracle is finally rising. If these words stir your spirit, don't keep them silent. Let them echo. Like, share, and comment to declare your agreement with heaven's timing. And if your heart recognizes this divine call, subscribe so you never miss what heaven releases next, because your story is only beginning. Comment 777 below as a prophetic act that you receive this word. Chosen one, every weight you've carried has been seen by the eyes of heaven. Not one tear has gone unnoticed, not one sigh unheard. The nights you lay awake in silence, wondering if God had turned his face away, were the nights he drew closest. You thought you were fighting alone, but there were angels standing guard at your bedside. Even when your prayers felt like they evaporated before reaching heaven's ceiling, they were collected, every single word, every whispered plea recorded in eternity's archive. You see, there is something sacred about pain. The world tells you to run from it, to hide it, to bury it deep and smile as if nothing is wrong. But heaven does not despise your brokenness. God does not turn away from your wounds. He leans into them. The tears that fell when no one was watching became the very language your spirit spoke to the Creator. They were never wasted. They became the ink of your testimony. You have carried burdens too heavy for human shoulders, yet you are still here. You walked through rejection, loss, and betrayal, and somehow, hope still flickers inside you. That flicker is evidence of divine design. You were built differently, forged in the fire of affliction, tempered by seasons of silence. While others were celebrated in public, your training happened in secret. And though the weight nearly broke you, it also built you. The Spirit would have you know not every delay was punishment. Some of them were protection. There were doors you were ready to walk through, but they were not ready for you. There were people who left you, but their departure preserved you. You thought their absence was rejection, but it was divine subtraction, God removing what could not handle your elevation. Every disappointment carried divine fingerprints. Sometimes, the crushing seasons teach you what comfort never could. You learn to hear God not through thunder, but through whispers. You learned to walk by faith when sight was stripped away. You learned that love without condition only exists in Him. Those lessons were expensive, but they purchased wisdom that cannot be taught in peace. Pain became your teacher, but God remained your shepherd through every valley. There were nights when you wanted to stop believing, when your faith felt paper-thin, and the promises seemed too far gone. Yet somehow, grace kept pulling you back. You may not have realized it, but every time you whispered, "Lord, help me," heaven answered by strengthening you just enough to make it through another day. You are not standing here because you are strong. You are standing because grace refused to let you fall. Chosen one, Understand this: every burden you carried has been part of divine preparation. The pressure you felt was not random, it was God enlarging your capacity. You had to learn endurance, because the weight of glory that's coming requires spiritual muscles that only struggle can build. You are not being punished, you are being prepared for promise. There's a sacred exchange that happens in suffering. What was once heaviness becomes oil. What was once mourning becomes melody. The broken vessel becomes a carrier of light that cannot be extinguished. Your heart has been stretched, not to break you, but to make more room for His presence. The very tears that once symbolized defeat are becoming the rivers through which your miracle will flow. You have often wondered, why me? Why the loneliness? Why the heartbreak? Why the long road? The answer is hidden in purpose. God could trust you with pain because He knew it wouldn't destroy you, it would refine you. The enemy thought your suffering would silence you, but instead it tuned your spirit to heaven's frequency. You now hear God more clearly, because the noise of the world no longer satisfies your soul. As we are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 56, verse 8, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." That verse is not poetic comfort, it's a divine record. Heaven keeps account of what broke you, because heaven intends to repay. For every tear, there will be restoration. For every night of mourning, a dawn of laughter. For every battle fought in silence, a public victory that will silence your enemies. The scale of your pain has already prophesied the magnitude of your blessing. Do not despise the weight. Chosen one. The heaviness was the evidence of the oil being pressed from your spirit. You will soon understand that what you lost was never truly loss. It was the seed that had to fall into the ground to birth something greater. You are walking toward the harvest of every hardship. Nothing you endured was meaningless. When you look back, you will see that every sleepless night became a stairway to glory. Every tear watered the soil of destiny. Every ache carved out a deeper place in you for God's glory to dwell. And when the miracle rises, and it will, you will realize that the burden was never punishment. It was prophecy. The same God who numbered your tears is now counting your blessings, preparing to release them in overflowing measure. So, lift your head. Chosen one, the weight you've carried is about to turn into wings. Chosen one, before the rising comes the breaking. Every miracle begins in a place that looks like loss. You have been through moments when the ground beneath you gave way, relationships shattered, opportunities vanished, prayers seemed unanswered. But the Spirit of the living God wants you to understand the breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal what was truly inside you. Oil does not flow from an unbroken vessel. Wheat is not turned into bread until it is crushed. Even the alabaster jar had to be shattered before the fragrance could fill the room. You have been the alabaster jar, and though the cracks in your soul once embarrassed you, heaven calls them sacred. They are proof that you've been handled by God. Those who have never been broken will never understand the depth of your worship. They can mimic your words, but not your tears. You've been in rooms where you smiled while silently bleeding. But still, you chose to love. Still, you chose to believe. That's what separates you from the rest. You kept trusting when nothing made sense. In those dark hours, when your heart ached and heaven felt far, something powerful was happening beneath the surface. Your faith was being refined. What once was fragile is becoming unshakable. Every trial that pressed against you was forcing your roots deeper. You didn't know it then, But the deeper the breaking, the higher the rising. God was building strength beneath the soil of your suffering. Sometimes, divine construction feels like destruction. You lose what you thought you couldn't live without. The doors you begged God to open suddenly close in your face. The people you counted on walk away without explanation. But in heaven's logic, subtraction often precedes multiplication. God tears down before he rebuilds stronger. The potter must crush the clay to reshape it. And when you are in his hands, even breaking is an act of love. The pain you thought would be your ending was actually the birthplace of something holy. Out of that heartbreak, compassion began to bloom. Out of that failure, humility took root. Out of that rejection, authority was born. You've been transformed by what you endured. And though the world saw your breaking, heaven saw your becoming. The Spirit wants you to remember something. Resurrection only follows crucifixion. Before Jesus wore a crown, he carried a cross. Before he rose from the tomb, he was laid in one. And you, his chosen one, are walking that same sacred pattern. The breaking always comes before the rising. As was spoken in the Psalms, chapter 126, verse 5, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." The enemy tried to convince you that you were being punished. But the truth is, you were being prepared. He tried to label your breaking as failure. But God calls it formation. The crushing didn't kill you, it crowned you. You have become a carrier of strength that cannot be taught, only experienced. There is a fragrance of endurance on your life now, a divine scent that tells both heaven and hell that you have survived what was meant to end you. So lift your eyes, even through the tears. Don't hide your scars, they are your credentials. Every mark of pain now carries the signature of heaven's craftsmanship. You are the proof that broken things still rise, that shattered dreams can still sing again. The breaking was the sound of something being released, a miracle trying to get out of the shell that once confined it. And when the rising begins, it will happen suddenly. The same people who saw you crushed will witness you crowned. The same ground where you wept will become the ground where you dance. God wastes nothing, not one moment of grief, not 1 hour of waiting, not one piece of your story. Every fragment is being gathered by divine hands to create something radiant and whole. So, if you are still in the middle of the breaking, don't despise it. Something holy is being born in you. You are not collapsing, you are transforming. Heaven is shaping you into a vessel that can carry miracles without leaking them away. The same hand that allowed the breaking will command the rising. And when he does, every piece will shine with purpose. Comment, "I rise again." Write it not just as words, but as a declaration. When you type it, you are prophesying over your own life that what was broken will rise, that what was lost will return, that what was dead will breathe again. Let it echo through your spirit, "I rise again." Chosen one, when heaven calls your name, everything begins to shift. The winds change direction. The atmosphere bends to divine authority. You may not hear an audible voice, but deep within your spirit something awakens, a sudden stirring, a holy recognition that you are not forgotten. The same God who spoke to Abraham under the stars and called Moses from a burning bush is whispering your name even now. It's not a random thought, not a coincidence, not imagination. It's the echo of eternity breaking through your human awareness. You have always been on his mind. Long before you took your first breath, Your name was written in the scrolls of destiny. Every detail of your life, every victory, every failure, every tear was already accounted for. You were not a last-minute decision or an afterthought. You were a deliberate act of divine intention. When heaven calls your name, it is not just to comfort you, it is to commission you. God calls you because there is something He placed within you that must now awaken. There is a rhythm to divine calling. First, He stirs your heart. You begin to feel restless in places where you once felt comfortable. The things that used to satisfy no longer do. You start sensing that there is more, a higher assignment, a deeper purpose. That restlessness is not frustration, it is revelation. Heaven is summoning you to step out of the ordinary and into the extraordinary. Then comes the testing. The call of God is never cheap. It comes with weight. You may find yourself misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected by people who once celebrated you. But that is part of the process. The voice of destiny often separates you from the crowd because it requires clarity that noise cannot provide. You were never meant to fit into every circle. You were chosen to create one that others will one day find refuge in. God's call is not limited by geography or circumstance. Whether you are standing in a palace or sitting in a prison, the call can reach you. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten by men, but remembered by God at the exact right time. When heaven finally called his name, the very chains that confined him became the proof of his preparation. And so it is with you. You have not been overlooked. You have been hidden until the appointed moment. You might ask, but how do I know it's really God calling me? You will know because His call carries peace. Even when it challenges you, it will not flatter your ego. It will awaken your purpose. It won't always make sense, but it will always make you move. His voice never condemns, it convicts. It never manipulates, it molds. When God calls you, He doesn't remind you of your failures. He reveals the future that your failures could not cancel. As was written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 1, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." That is the heartbeat of heaven toward you. God is not calling a stranger, He is calling His own. You belong to Him. The one who created galaxies knows every detail of your heart. He knows your fears, your doubts, your silent questions, and yet He still calls you, not because of what you've done, but because of who He is. His love does not waver based on your performance. It endures because it's anchored in His character. When heaven calls your name, even your surroundings begin to respond. Doors that refuse to open suddenly unlock. People who ignored you start remembering you. Ideas, opportunities, and divine connections begin aligning with supernatural precision. It's not luck, it's the orchestration of God. Every piece that seemed random starts forming a perfect pattern. The things that once hurt you begin to make sense in hindsight. Every detour was actually a direction. Sometimes, the call comes through stillness, a quiet conviction. Other times, it roars like thunder through disruption. You may lose something precious, only to realize that the loss was the voice of God redirecting your path, whether gentle or forceful. His call always leads to restoration. Even if you resist, He keeps calling, because His purpose for you is stronger than your fear of failure. When you finally respond, when you stop running and simply say, "Here I am," everything changes. The same hands that formed you begin to guide you. The same spirit that hovered over creation begins to move through you. You begin to see life differently, not as random moments, but as divine appointments. Every breath becomes an act of worship. Every day, a continuation of the call. Chosen one. Heaven has been calling your name through every storm, every silence, every tear. You thought you were seeking God, but in truth, He was seeking you all along. And now, the time of hesitation is ending. The call is not for later, it's for now. Answer. And watch how the same God who called you by name begins to transform everything connected to you. Chosen one. This is the turning point. The very air around you begins to shift as divine timing steps into alignment. For so long, it felt as though your prayers hung unanswered in the silence between heaven and earth. But what you thought was delay was never denial, it was divine choreography. God was not ignoring you. He was arranging everything behind the scenes so that when the moment came, it would not just be right, it would be perfect. Think of an orchestra before a grand symphony. There is noise at first, each instrument tuning, each musician preparing. It sounds chaotic, almost uncomfortable. Yet, when the conductor lifts his hand, the chaos becomes harmony. That is what is happening in your life right now. The noise, the uncertainty, the seeming disorder, all of it is about to resolve into melody. Heaven's conductor has lifted his hand, and the music of your destiny is about to begin. You have been walking a road that looked barren, but beneath your feet, seeds were germinating. You didn't see the roots growing, but they were there, drawing strength from hidden waters. God often works in places the eye cannot see. The waiting season was the underground miracle quiet, unseen, yet unstoppable. What is about to break through will astonish even those who counted you out. Sometimes, the waiting felt unbearable. You tried to move things yourself, to force progress, to open doors that stayed stubbornly closed. You thought you were being left behind, but the truth is, God was protecting your timing. If the door had opened too soon, you might have stepped into something that would have crushed you. The promise was never in danger, it was simply maturing. It is written in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven." Seasons are not punishments, they are teachers. Winter prepares the ground for spring. The seed that lies dormant beneath the snow is not dead, it is gathering strength. In the same way, your waiting season has been a holy winter. You were being strengthened in silence, not forgotten. The frost that seemed to freeze your progress was preserving your purpose. Now the season turns. The invisible hand of God is removing barriers, aligning people, and arranging opportunities that no human effort could create. You will begin to notice divine coincidences, timely conversations, sudden clarity, resources arriving when you least expect them. Don't brush these off as luck. They are signs that heaven has entered your timeline. Chosen one, as your miracle begins to rise, allow gratitude to flow freely from your heart. Gratitude is the language of alignment. It tells heaven that you recognize the source of your blessing. When you thank God for what He's doing, even before it fully appears, you become magnetized to more. Gratitude turns delay into delight, and uncertainty into peace. And as you walk into this turning point, remember that your journey can ignite faith in others. Someone out there is still in their waiting season, and your testimony might be the torch that helps them see. When you share light, it multiplies, it never diminishes. The butterfly that finally emerges carries on its wings the memory of the cocoon, and by flying, it proves transformation is possible. If this message speaks to your soul, consider sharing it as an act of faith. Sometimes, sharing truth is more than a digital gesture. It's a seed of hope planted in another heart. Someone scrolling through the darkness of their night might encounter your share and realize that dawn still comes. If you have found strength through these words, your support, whether through a like, a share, or even a heartfelt donation, becomes part of that same miracle chain. Think of it as adding oil to a lamp that never goes out. Every small act of kindness keeps this flame of encouragement burning, reaching hearts that need it most. When you give, you don't just sustain a message, you participate in it. You become a co-laborer in spreading light. And if this word has truly resonated, subscribe to stay connected with what heaven continues to release. Just as rivers stay alive by flowing, revelation grows when we stay connected. Your subscription is not just a click, it's a way of saying, yes, I choose to keep walking in light. You are standing at the edge of divine reversal. What once felt stagnant will soon surge forward. The time of striving is ending. The time of flowing begins. You will look back and realize that the detours were directions, that every closed door was grace in disguise. This is the season where your prayers and God's timing finally collide. So breathe deeply. Chosen one, you are no longer waiting for the turn, it has already begun. The first notes of your new song are being played, and heaven is conducting the symphony. Lift your head. The shadows are breaking. The dawn you prayed for is stepping into view. And as you rise into this next season, carry this truth in your spirit. Divine timing never fails. What God has ordained cannot be delayed, denied, or diminished. The wheel of destiny has turned in your favor. And now finally you will see what you believed for. Chosen one. Can you feel it? There is movement in the invisible. Something has shifted in the heavens, and the atmosphere around you is vibrating with unseen activity. You may not hear the sound, but your spirit senses it, an awakening, a stirring, a divine orchestration unfolding beyond your sight. Heaven has dispatched reinforcements on your behalf. The battle that once seemed one-sided is no longer yours alone. The armies of the living God are now moving in formation, waging war for your destiny. You have prayed, waited, and stood firm through long nights of uncertainty. You thought nothing was happening, yet the unseen world was being shaken by your endurance. Every prayer you whispered in faith became a command issued in the spirit realm. Every tear became a trumpet that summoned angels. You have not been praying into silence. You have been speaking into movement. There are seasons when God works quietly through men, and there are moments when he sends his messengers directly. This is such a moment. The angelic realm has been stirred in your favor. Their wings carry assignments. Their hands bear answers. The delay that seemed endless is now being overtaken by divine speed. Doors that once resisted are feeling the weight of heavenly pressure. They cannot remain shut much longer. As it was written in the Psalms, chapter 91, verse 11, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." Do you understand what that means? Chosen one, it means heaven has issued a decree of protection. You are not merely being defended, you are being surrounded. There is no dark force, no whispered curse, no hidden scheme that can bypass angelic command. Even when you walk through uncertainty, unseen hands are clearing the path. You have felt the tension because you stand at the threshold of release. Sometimes the movement of angels is subtle, a sudden peace in the middle of chaos, an inexplicable strength to keep going, a door opening when you had given up knocking. Other times, it is dramatic, a miracle that defies logic, a reversal that makes the impossible possible. However it unfolds, recognize the pattern when the supernatural begins to stir. The natural world follows suit. Heaven always moves first, and earth adjusts to match its rhythm. You may look around and see no visible change, but in the spirit, the armies of God are already advancing, like wind that moves the leaves, though you cannot see it. Divine presence is reshaping circumstances that once resisted you. The spiritual walls surrounding your promise are shaking. The sound of breakthrough is faint but real. The angelic stirring signals that manifestation is near. And so, the Spirit says, do not retreat. Do not grow weary when the shaking intensifies. The tremors you feel are not danger, they are delivery pains. Something holy is being born through you. The enemy senses it too, that's why attacks have multiplied. But the same power that raised Jesus from the grave is the same power surrounding you now. You are not vulnerable, you are covered. The assignments of angels are not limited to protection alone, they also bring messages, provision, and divine alignment. The very things you've been praying for: clarity, resources, guidance, are being carried toward you on wings of obedience. You don't have to chase them, they are finding you. Heaven knows your address. Heaven knows your name. Heaven knows your need. Sometimes, God allows you to feel alone so that you will recognize the weight of what's coming. But when the angelic realm begins to move, isolation ends. Help comes from unexpected places. People you never met begin to favor you. Doors open without keys. The impossible begins to look ordinary. That's how you know heaven has intervened. Chosen one. This is the moment to lift your expectation higher. Don't shrink your faith to the size of your current reality. Expand it to match the scale of heaven's activity. The same angels that visited Daniel in the lion's den, the same ones who rolled the stone from Christ's tomb, are still on assignment. The supernatural is not ancient history, it is your present reality. So stand firm, keep your spirit steady. Heaven is not just watching, it is working. What you sense in your heart is not imagination, it is confirmation. The stirring you feel means that your miracle is not far away. When you reach the end of this message, take a prophetic step of agreement. Comment 444. It is a number of angelic movement and divine order. By writing it, you're declaring that heaven's armies are in motion on your behalf. Let it be your symbol of alignment, your silent yes to God's unseen work. Hold this truth close. You are not fighting alone, and you never were. Heaven has taken your case personally. The stirring has begun, and soon, what was invisible will become undeniable. Chosen one. There was a time when the silence around you felt unbearable. The room seemed empty. The phone stopped ringing. The friends disappeared. The people who once stood beside you slowly faded until you were left staring at the echo of your own prayers. You asked God why He took you through such isolation, why the connections dried up, why the familiar ground turned cold. why the doors of community seem to close all at once. But listen carefully. Now you were not abandoned. You were hidden. God hides what he values. When a diamond is formed, it does not shine in the open, it is buried in darkness, pressed under the weight of the earth. Gold is concealed deep beneath rock until it is refined. Seeds are covered in soil where no light reaches them. Yet beneath that quiet covering, life begins. So too with you. Your hidden season was never punishment, it was preservation. There are moments in every chosen life when God removes the applause of people so you can hear his voice again. When the noise of approval fades, the whisper of heaven grows louder. In that stillness, he begins to rebuild your strength, your focus, and your identity. You were not meant to live by the validation of the crowd. You were called to move by the direction of the Spirit. The isolation season has purpose. It teaches you to stand on your own faith, not someone else's encouragement. It reveals what was genuine and what was dependent on comfort. It exposes false support systems and forces you to anchor yourself in the eternal. You learned through solitude that you can survive storms without an audience, that you can walk through shadows without applause, and that you can carry light even when no one else notices. It was in isolation that many of God's chosen were formed. Moses met God in the wilderness long before he faced Pharaoh. David learned to worship among sheep before he ruled among kings. Elijah heard the still small voice, not in a palace but in a cave. Even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray, away from the crowds that sought him. Solitude is not a sign of separation from God. It's the environment where intimacy with him deepens. You may have cried in that season, wondering why heaven felt silent. But the silence was God's strategy to unlearn your dependence on noise. He had to detox your spirit from distraction. Sometimes, he has to strip away everything that used to define you, so that when he reintroduces you, you no longer seek to impress, but to impact. What he's building in private will soon be revealed in public, but first, you must learn to be content in obscurity, in the secret place. You learn to pray differently. You no longer prayed for things, you prayed for presence. You stopped chasing outcomes and started chasing intimacy. That's the shift that marks a true chosen one, when the hunger for miracles becomes a hunger for the miracle maker himself. It was there, in the silence, that God began to heal the fractures in your soul, restoring what applause and affirmation could never reach. You may not realize it yet, but that hiddenness saved you. Had God exposed you too early, the weight of visibility might have crushed you. Public favor without private foundation is dangerous. So he allowed the world to overlook you while he strengthened your spirit in secret. Every quiet morning, every lonely evening, every unseen act of obedience was shaping you into a vessel that could carry his glory without leaking it. As it is written in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, "Go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret." Those secret moments are where the most powerful transformations take place. The world measures progress by visibility, but heaven measures it by surrender. Every hidden prayer, every quiet yes to God, every unseen moment of faith was adding to your spiritual weight. The oil that now flows through you was pressed in silence. Now the hiding is ending. The cocoon has served its purpose. The same hand that covered you is now lifting you. You are emerging not as the same person who entered the season of solitude, but as someone refined, wiser, and ready. The voice that once whispered, "Wait," now says, "Rise." And when you step forward, people will see the difference, but will not understand the process. They'll see the glow, but won't recognize the nights that birthed it. Chosen one. Remember, this being hidden never meant being forgotten. Heaven knows exactly where you are. And when it's time, no power on earth can keep you concealed. The same God who hid you for your protection is the one who will reveal you for his glory. Chosen one. The fire you've walked through was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to define you. There are seasons in your life that felt like too much to bear, the betrayal that left your heart bleeding, the loss that stripped your sense of stability, the battles that made you question your worth. But through every flame, every pressure, every burning moment of pain, something holy was happening. The fire was refining you. You see, God never wastes fire. In the hands of men, fire burns away value. In the hands of God, it burns away weakness. You were never thrown into chaos to perish. You were placed there to be purified. The heat that surrounded you was heaven's forge, melting away fear, pride, and doubt until only faith remained. It was there, in the intensity of trial, that your true identity began to emerge stronger, brighter, and unbreakable. When gold is refined, it must endure the furnace repeatedly. Each round removes a new layer of impurity. The refiner does not stop when it's partially pure. He continues until he can see his reflection clearly in the gold. That's what God has been doing with you. He kept the fire burning, not to punish you, but to bring his reflection out of you. He saw his image forming in your endurance, his strength glowing through your surrender, his love revealed through your resilience. At times, you begged for the heat to end. You thought you couldn't survive another wave, another test, another heartbreak. But every time you thought it was over, grace carried you a little further. You didn't realize it then, but endurance was being engraved into your spirit. What once broke you now bows before you. You have learned how to walk through flames without fear, how to trust God even when everything familiar falls apart. There were moments when the fire felt unfair, when you compared your path to others and wondered why your journey seemed harder. But remember this, the level of the refining always matches the level of the assignment. God only refines those he intends to reveal. The intensity of your process is a prophetic indicator of the magnitude of your purpose. You were chosen for greater weight, so your purification had to go deeper. As it is written in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3, he will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. Notice the posture he sits. He does not rush the process. He watches carefully, making sure the heat does not consume what it's meant to cleanse. The refiner never leaves the furnace unattended, neither has God left you. Even when it felt like you were burning alone, he was seated right beside you, monitoring every second, ensuring the flame refined but never destroyed. His watchfulness was your protection. The fire also revealed what could not stay. Some relationships, habits, and comforts melted away because they could not endure the heat meant for your destiny. Do not mourn their loss. What the fire removes, the promise never needed. The people who left when the pressure rose were not equipped for your next level. The opportunities that collapsed were not aligned with your future. The fire purified not just you, but your path. You emerged from that furnace different, wiser, quieter, deeper. The things that used to shake you no longer have power over you. You have become someone the enemy can no longer intimidate because you've already walked through what was meant to destroy you. You've discovered that fire cannot consume what is already surrendered to God. And now, as the smoke clears, you begin to see yourself as heaven sees you, radiant, refined, and ready. The ashes beneath your feet are not symbols of loss, they are proof of victory. You carry the scent of survival, the evidence of endurance. The light in your eyes comes not from comfort, but from conquering. Chosen one, the refining fire has not been in vain. You have been tempered like a blade, sharp, balanced, and effective. The season of burning has forged within you a strength that will soon cut through barriers that once resisted you. The fire that once frightened you has now become your ally. You know how to walk through heat and come out holy. This is the power of the refining process. It transforms wounds into wisdom, trials into testimony, and pain into purpose. You are no longer who you were before the fire. You are the refined vessel, the purified one, the reflection of divine endurance. And when people see you now, they may not understand the glow upon your life. But heaven does. It's the gleam of one who has walked through fire and discovered it could not win. Chosen one. There comes a moment when everything shifts, not gradually, but suddenly. The winds change, the atmosphere rearranges, and what was once still begins to move. That moment is called the prophetic shift. You've been sensing it deep within you, an invisible nudge, an urge to rise, a holy restlessness that will not let you stay where you are. It is not imagination, it is heaven's announcement that your season of waiting is ending. For so long, you've carried promises that seemed dormant. You heard God's words spoken over you, prophecies whispered in prayer, visions seen in the quiet, but the fulfillment seemed far away. You waited, you obeyed, and at times you doubted whether you heard him correctly. Yet, through every pause, heaven was preparing alignment. The prophetic word over your life never expired. It was incubating. Every delay was a gestation period. Every silence a deepening of roots. Now the appointed time has come. The shift is not future, it is now. When God releases a prophetic shift, everything begins to respond. Time bends to his command. People who had forgotten you suddenly remember. Doors that resisted you swing open with ease. What once drained you now energizes you. Even your thoughts begin to align with divine rhythm. You sense that something new has begun, though you can't yet define it. That is how prophecy manifests. It starts in the unseen and becomes visible only after obedience meets timing. It is written in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 2. Write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. The Spirit is saying to you, chosen one, this is the season to write again. Write the vision, even if it feels too big. Write the dream, even if it scares you. Write the instruction, even if it seems impossible. The act of writing is not just record keeping, it's participation. When you put ink to paper, you agree with heaven's blueprint. You translate spiritual reality into earthly form. The prophetic shift begins not with motion, but with agreement. You see, God doesn't reveal prophecy to entertain, he reveals it to activate. Every prophetic word is an invitation to alignment. The shift will not wait for your comfort. It will respond to your obedience. When heaven moves, it looks for hearts that are ready to move with it. You can't stay attached to the old while reaching for the new. That's why certain things have recently fallen away. Jobs, relationships, routines. It wasn't random loss, it was divine reorganization. Prophetic shifts often begin with discomfort. Old spaces start feeling tight. Familiar places lose peace. And the routines that once satisfied now feel stale. That's your cue that elevation is near. Just like an eagle stirs its nest to make the eaglets fly, God stirs your comfort to make you soar. The shaking is not punishment, it's propulsion. Heaven is forcing you out of survival mode and into purpose mode. When the shift happens, your language changes too. You stop speaking from pain and start speaking from promise. You no longer say, "I'm trying to make it," but "I'm walking in what's mine." You begin to think with divine confidence, not arrogance, but awareness of who stands with you. The Spirit begins to highlight instructions you overlooked before, and obedience becomes the currency of acceleration. Chosen one. This shift is not about movement alone, it's about metamorphosis. You are not just stepping into a new season, you are becoming a new creation within it. Old fears will not fit where you're going. Old habits will not survive the altitude of your calling. This is why God waited until now to ensure that when the door opened, you would be mature enough to walk through it without losing yourself. Do not be surprised when new opportunities appear that feel too large for your current capacity. God never calls you to what you can handle. He calls you to what will stretch your faith. The prophetic shift requires courage, the kind that says, "Even if I don't know the full plan, I trust the one who does." So now, as your spirit stands at this threshold, pause and acknowledge the weight of this moment. Heaven has confirmed your readiness. The waiting season has ended. The walking season has begun. Comment, "I'm ready." Write it as a declaration, not a wish. By typing those words, you are signaling to heaven that you agree with what is unfolding. You are saying, "I will move when you say move. I will speak when you say speak. And I will no longer delay what you have already ordained." Let that simple phrase become your covenant of action. Because the truth is, chosen one, the prophetic shift is not coming, it's already here. And as you step into it, you will see that what once felt impossible was only waiting for your yes. Chosen one. The miracle is already in motion. It's no longer a distant dream, it's a living current, flowing quietly beneath the surface of your days. You may not see the full picture yet, but heaven has pressed go. What once stood still is now shifting. What was locked is loosening. God's timing has reached the moment of manifestation. Every prayer, every act of faith, every night you whispered His name, all of it has gathered into this unstoppable wave of divine movement. Miracles rarely begin with a flash of light. They begin as a whisper in the soil. Think of rain after a long drought. It doesn't always arrive in thunder. Sometimes it begins as a single drop, unseen, yet enough to soften the ground. That's how your miracle begins. Small signs that may seem ordinary but carry eternal weight. A conversation, a phone call, a sudden opportunity. These are not coincidences. They are the early footsteps of answered prayer walking toward you. When God moves, He moves with precision. The same power that holds galaxies in place is now aligning details in your life. You might not understand why certain things are happening, but you will soon see the pattern form. The chaos will resolve into clarity. The pieces will fit together in ways you couldn't have planned. You've entered the chapter where manifestation replaces waiting, where what you once only believed begins to breathe. It is written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 7. For we walk by faith, not by sight. That is your posture now, to walk as if it's already done. Faith does not wait for proof. It produces proof. When you choose to believe before you see, you release heaven's authority into earth's reality. The unseen begins to respond to expectation. The miracle doesn't manifest because of striving, it manifests because of alignment. Chosen one, pause for a moment and look at how far you've come. The person you were a year ago wouldn't have survived what you just overcame. The valleys you crossed, the fires you endured, the heartbreaks that should have destroyed you, each one became part of the testimony you now carry. You are standing on the soil of resilience, surrounded by the seeds of promise. And now, they are beginning to sprout. Sometimes, the miracle starts quietly, like dawn spreading its first light before the sun appears. You may still see shadows, but morning has already begun. Heaven's clock is never late. The invisible hand of God is moving things into place: contracts, reconciliations, open doors, divine connections. You might not feel the wind yet, but the sails of your destiny are filling. There's beauty in recognizing divine movement even before it becomes visible. It's like standing beside a still river, unaware that beneath the surface, a powerful current is pulling you toward promise. That's what faith is, trusting that motion exists even when everything looks calm. And as your miracle begins to move, remember, this light shared becomes light multiplied. When you like, share, or support messages like this, you're not just spreading words, you're spreading hope. Somewhere, someone feels forgotten tonight. They're waiting for a sign that God still moves. Your share might be that sign. You could be the messenger that heaven uses to deliver strength to another weary soul. If this message has resonated with you, let your response be an act of gratitude. Like this message, not just as acknowledgement, but as agreement. Each like is a small flame, and together they become a beacon visible across distances. Share it as a way of saying, "Let this hope travel beyond me." You never know who might find their miracle in your obedience. And if your heart feels led, your donation, no matter how small, is like adding water to a river already flowing. It keeps the current of inspiration alive, allowing these words to reach further, to find those who have lost faith, to rekindle hearts that have gone cold. When you give, you join in the miracle. You become part of heaven's movement on earth. Finally, subscribe if you haven't yet. Staying connected allows the next wave of divine revelation to find you right when you need it. Just as a tree stays nourished by remaining rooted, your spirit grows by staying planted where the word flows. Chosen one, your miracle is not coming from afar, it is rising from within your story. What once broke you is now birthing glory. What seemed lost is returning with increase. Heaven's movement has begun, and it will not stop until every promise finds its fulfillment. The tide of divine timing is carrying you forward. Trust it. Step into it. The same God who started the motion will sustain it until completion. You are walking in your miracle even now. Chosen one. When God steps in, Confusion collapses. Every weapon that was formed against you begins to malfunction under the weight of his authority. You may not have noticed it yet, but the plans designed to harm you are unraveling even now. What the enemy meant for destruction is being reversed, repurposed, and rewritten into deliverance. The tables are turning silently, powerfully, and perfectly. There have been moments when it seemed like darkness had the upper hand. You felt outnumbered, outmatched, and unprepared. But what you could not see was the invisible defense forming around you. Every time you prayed, "Lord, protect me," angels moved into position. Every time you refused to curse your situation and chose to bless God instead, the enemy's strategy backfired. Every time you held your peace instead of fighting with words, heaven fought on your behalf. You have to understand, confusion is one of the enemy's oldest tactics. He uses it to blur your focus, to make you question what you heard, to twist your emotions until you can't tell what's real. He hopes that if you lose clarity, you'll surrender your purpose. But clarity doesn't come from circumstances, it comes from presence. When you return your gaze to God, confusion loses its voice. You remember who you are, and every lie begins to unravel. When the Lord intervenes, even chaos becomes cooperative. The very storms that once terrified you begin to carry you toward destiny. What was sent to bury you becomes the soil that grows your breakthrough. The winds that were supposed to scatter you start propelling you. The spiritual battlefield shifts in your favor because God doesn't just silence your enemies, He exposes them. Every hidden plot is being brought to light. As the voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." That single truth dismantles every fear. You are not responsible for avenging yourself. You are not required to chase down lies or correct every false word spoken against you. God has taken ownership of your battle. You may feel surrounded, but in reality, your enemies are surrounded by Him. When the Almighty steps into a conflict, the outcome is not uncertain, it is inevitable. Do you remember when Israel stood before the Red Sea? They could see only two options: drown or die by Pharaoh's sword. Yet God had a third way, a way no human eye could imagine. He parted the impossible. He turned water into a highway. And when His people walked through, the same waves that protected them swallowed their pursuers. That is what divine intervention looks like, your deliverance and your enemy's defeat happening in the same moment. Chosen one, you are in that kind of moment right now. The ground beneath you may tremble, but it's not collapsing, it's shifting. The pressure you feel is the sound of the enemy's grip loosening. His confusion is now turning on himself. What he meant to use against you will become his downfall. The traps set for you are being triggered by the hands that built them. There's a mystery in how God works. Sometimes He doesn't remove the opposition, He blinds it. Sometimes He doesn't silence the accuser, He makes their words powerless. You don't have to understand every move, just trust the motion. The divine strategy is unfolding even when you can't trace it. The same God who orchestrated victory for David with a single stone is orchestrating yours with a single command. The battle you've been fighting is bigger than you, but it's not stronger than your God. Heaven is realigning every outcome. Even the delays you've experienced are working in your favor. The enemy thought he was slowing you down, but he was giving you time to gain wisdom. He thought he was silencing you, but he was actually making your voice more anointed. He thought he could block your blessing, but he forgot what God decrees cannot be intercepted. You are stepping into a season of divine reversal. Every curse spoken in darkness is turning into fuel for your promotion. Every person who tried to hinder you will become a witness to your rising. What was confusion will now become confirmation. What was warfare will now become testimony. So, chosen one, be still, not in fear, but in faith. When you feel like nothing makes sense, that's usually when heaven is finishing what it started. God's strategy often looks like mystery until the victory is revealed. Soon you will see how every move was intentional, how every struggle had meaning, how every delay carried destiny. And when the smoke clears, you'll stand on the other side, not as a survivor, but as a symbol of divine intervention. The confusion will be gone, the noise silenced, the enemies scattered, and all that will remain is the unmistakable evidence that God Himself stepped in. Chosen one, the moment has arrived when favor begins to speak louder than effort. What once required striving will now happen through alignment. You are stepping into the realm of divine evidence, the undeniable proof that God has stepped into your situation. For a long time, you've walked by faith, trusting the invisible, believing the unproven. But now, heaven says, you will see with your own eyes what your heart has believed. There is a fragrance that follows favor. It lingers in every place you walk, announcing that heaven has touched earth through your life. The same people who once questioned your faith will witness what faith produces when God is involved. You've cried in silence, but you will rejoice in public. The tables are turning, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. The evidence of God's favor will be too clear to deny. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, forgotten in prison. But when God's favor arrived, it didn't knock softly, it shattered every wall of limitation. In a single day, he was lifted from the dungeon to the palace. That's what divine evidence does. It breaks the timeline of human expectation. It accelerates destiny beyond logic. You've been faithful in obscurity, and heaven took note. You gave when it cost you. You loved when it hurt. You prayed when it seemed useless. None of it was wasted. Favor is heaven's acknowledgement of obedience. It's the reward of endurance, the visible signature of divine approval, and it's being released into your life right now. As we are reminded in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 6, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." Those are not poetic words, they are prophecy. Surely means certainty, not chance. The pursuit of favor is not your responsibility. The pursuit of you is favor's assignment. Goodness and mercy are not just spiritual ideas, they are heavenly agents, tracking your steps, overtaking you with blessings you did not earn. Even now, they are catching up to you, manifesting through opportunities, relationships, and breakthroughs. Divine evidence appears in layers. Sometimes it shows up as peace in the middle of chaos. Other times as provision where there was once lack. It may look like reconciliation where bitterness once lived, or healing where pain once ruled. However it manifests, it always carries one signature: impossibility made possible. The Spirit of the Lord says this to you. Chosen one, you are about to walk into rooms your name has already entered. Meetings, offers, and opportunities are aligning beyond your awareness. Heaven is arranging divine introductions that will open new chapters of purpose. The places where you once faced rejection will now extend invitation. What you thought was a no was actually a not yet. And now, the yet has arrived. Favor is not random, it's relational. It flows from connection with the Father. When you prioritize presence over performance, favor becomes your natural environment. You don't have to chase it, you simply carry it. Everywhere you go, doors recognize the one who walks with you. Just as the sea parted for Moses because God was with him, so circumstances will part for you. The evidence of favor will not only bless you, it will testify of who sent you. Chosen one. Do not hide what God is doing. When blessings begin to manifest, let gratitude be your first language. Speak openly of His goodness, not to boast, but to bear witness. People are watching your life as proof that faith still works. Some are one miracle away from believing again. You are not just a receiver of favor, you are a messenger of it. There will be sudden moments that take your breath away, unexpected news, doors opening, debts cancelled, answers arriving. When they happen, remember, this is what you prayed for. These are the signs you waited through the wilderness to see. You've entered the season where your testimony begins to unfold in real time. You'll notice even your countenance changing. The exhaustion that once marked you will lift. The heaviness will break. The same eyes that once carried sorrow will now shine with peace. It won't be because life became easy. It will be because grace has overtaken you. That's what favor looks like. It's not the absence of struggle, it's the presence of divine assistance in the middle of it. And yet, chosen one, this favor is not meant for you alone. It is generational. The blessings coming to you are also flowing through you to your family, your lineage, your community. The doors you're walking through will remain open for those who come after you. You are the evidence of answered prayers from those who came before. Someone in your ancestry cried out for deliverance, and your favor is heaven's response to that cry. As you walk in this season, stay humble. Favor without humility becomes pride, but favor with humility becomes power. You will be lifted, but remain rooted. You will be celebrated, but stay surrendered. Let the evidence of God's goodness never make you forget the valley that trained you to carry it. Now, chosen one, pause for a moment. Can you sense the shift, that lightness in your spirit? That is the weight of struggle lifting as the weight of glory descends. Heaven has turned the page. The next chapter begins in favor. And as a prophetic act, seal this word with faith. Comment 555. That number represents divine grace, multiplied the evidence of God's hand moving in your life. When you type it, you're declaring, I receive the manifestation. I walk in favor. I carry the evidence. Because now, chosen one, you no longer just believe in miracles, you are becoming the proof of one. Chosen one. As you walk deeper into this divine unfolding, you begin to understand the mystery of the crown and the cross. The two are inseparable, one cannot exist without the other. Every crown of glory is preceded by a season of crushing. Every exaltation is birthed from surrender. This is the paradox of the chosen to rise. You must bow to live. You must first die to yourself. You have carried burdens few could comprehend. The weight of purpose often feels heavier than the weight of pain, because it demands everything. To carry the call of God is to carry contradiction, joy, and sorrow intertwined. Victory and warfare coexisting in the same breath. You've known the sweetness of revelation and the sting of rejection. You've felt the glory and the grief, the anointing and the isolation. And yet, through it all, you remained faithful. The cross is the place of crushing, but it is also the place of transformation. It's where your will is exchanged for His, where self dissolves and purpose takes its true form. Every time you said yes when it hurt, you were carrying your cross. Every time you forgave instead of retaliating, every time you chose obedience over comfort, you were walking the same path your Savior walked. The world sees obedience as weakness, but heaven calls it royalty. You see, the crown is not given to the strong in flesh, but to the surrendered in spirit. The real victory is not in conquering others, but in conquering yourself, your impulses, your pride, your need for control. That's what makes you different. You have learned to yield, and yielding is the highest form of strength. The cross you carried in secret has qualified you for a crown that cannot fade, as was spoken in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 2, verse 12. If we suffer, we shall also reign with Him. That verse isn't merely a promise, it's a blueprint. Reigning doesn't come after ease, it comes after endurance. The path to kingship runs through valleys of testing. God doesn't crown the untested, because authority must rest upon proven character. The cross is the refining place, the anvil where heaven shapes leaders. It strips away the excess until only purity remains. Chosen one, you've endured your crucible. You've walked through seasons that felt like death, but resurrection was hidden in them all along. Every heartbreak was pruning. Every disappointment was calibration. Every trial was chiseling you into a vessel of authority. Now you carry not only words of faith, but the weight of experience. You speak not from theory, but from scars, and that is what gives your words power. The crown and the cross are not opposites, they are partners. The cross humbles you so that the crown will not corrupt you. It reminds you of who gave you the victory in the first place. The thorns Jesus wore were not signs of defeat, they were symbols of dominion disguised as suffering. Likewise, your pain has become your platform. Your wounds are now your weapons. You may not have realized it, but every act of endurance was heaven's coronation rehearsal. Each tear you wiped away alone was polishing the gold that now glimmers over your destiny. You didn't lose in your suffering, you were learning how to reign with compassion. True kings and queens of the Spirit are not enthroned for themselves, but for service. The higher God lifts you, the more He calls you to lift others. There is a sacred beauty in scars. They remind you of where you've been and what you've survived. But they also testify of grace. They no longer ache, they shine. They prove that even when you were broken, God's hand never left you. Your story is not one of tragedy, but transformation. The crown you now carry was not handed to you. It was forged through obedience and tears. Chosen one, the season of crushing is ending, and the season of crowning has begun. You will still carry humility, but you will no longer carry heaviness. The oil of gladness replaces the spirit of mourning. The ashes you once wore are being exchanged for beauty that cannot fade. God is adorning you with authority, wisdom, and peace, the true jewels of the crown. And as you step forward, remember, the cross behind you is not a reminder of defeat, but a monument of divine love. It stands as proof that surrender is not the end of your power, but the beginning of it. Every time you bow, heaven crowns you anew. Every act of obedience adds another jewel to your crown of purpose. So walk with your head held high, not in pride, but in gratitude. The cross refined you, the crown now reveals you. You are not defined by what broke you, but by what you became through it. You are a living testimony that suffering does not end the story, it completes it. Chosen one, the voice of heaven calls again, arise, not as a suggestion, not as encouragement, but as a command. You have rested in waiting, healed through hiddenness, endured through breaking, and learned through refining. Now the time has come to stand tall again. The same God who allowed the storm now speaks calm into it, and his word to you is simple: rise. There is a holy stirring beneath your feet, a divine summons awakening your spirit. It is not just about moving forward, it is about stepping into authority. You have been trained in fire, taught in silence, and shaped in seasons of obscurity. Those who once saw you bowed under the weight of affliction will now see you walking with the weight of glory. The ashes of yesterday are transforming into the foundation of tomorrow's victory. When God says, arise, he is not merely asking you to stand physically, he is commanding your spirit to return to full strength. It is a resurrection call. The very places where you felt defeated are now becoming altars of power. Every part of you that felt buried by fear, disappointment, or shame is hearing the voice of God say, come forth, just as he called Lazarus out of the tomb. He is calling you out of what once contained you. You have lingered long enough at the threshold of potential. Heaven has waited for your response. The excuses, the fear, the hesitations, they can no longer remain. The glory resting on your life cannot be carried in hesitation. The world doesn't need your perfection, it needs your obedience. And obedience begins with one act of courage, standing up again. There's something sacred about standing after falling. Every scar becomes a testimony. Every limp becomes a sign of victory. You may not rise quickly, but you will rise completely. The hands that trembled in weakness will now heal others. The voice that once cried in despair will now declare freedom. You have been restored not to remain silent, but to proclaim what restoration looks like. As was written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. That is not a poetic statement, it is a decree. The light of God is not just around you, it is within you. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead now ignites your purpose again. You were never meant to hide your light beneath the shadow of past pain. You are the lamp that must stand on the hill, the flame that must burn even when the wind howls. Chosen one. This rising is different. It is not built on emotion, but on revelation. You are not returning to old cycles. You are stepping into divine rhythm. The season of wandering is over. You now rise not as a wounded warrior, but as a commissioned vessel. Every skill, every lesson, every wound has shaped you for this exact moment. Heaven does not waste experiences, it redeems them. To arise means to accept responsibility for the call upon your life. It means to stop waiting for affirmation and begin walking in assignment. God is no longer asking you to observe, He's commissioning you to lead. The authority you carry was born from the battles you survived. You are not an echo of others, you are the original voice of a new move. When you stand, creation responds, circumstances begin to rearrange. People connected to your destiny feel a sudden shift, because your rising triggers their release. That's how divine order works. One obedient soul can realign generations. Your yes carries ripple effects you may never fully see, but heaven records every impact. You've spent enough time doubting your worth, questioning your strength, minimizing your purpose. That season ends now. Stand not because you feel ready, but because God says you are. Rise not because the ground beneath you is stable, but because your faith anchors you beyond it. The call to arise is a call to trust again, to move, even when you don't know where the next step leads. The world will not see the invisible hours that prepared you for this. They will see only the strength, not the struggle, the crown, not the crushing. But that's what makes your light authentic. It carries history. Your glow is not artificial. It is earned through fire and tears. That's why it shines differently. Arising does not mean the absence of fear. It means choosing purpose despite it. Courage is not the lack of trembling. It's moving forward while your knees still shake. Heaven's heroes were never fearless. They were faithful. You are now counted among them. Chosen one. Lift your eyes. Heaven's light is upon you. The dawn of your new era has begun. The night served its purpose, it strengthened your vision. Now step into the morning with confidence, with clarity, and with calm authority. The command of God still echoes through eternity. Arise. The world is waiting for your light. Chosen one. What happens to you now will not remain with you alone. The glory rising within you will ripple outward, touching lives you may never meet, transforming hearts you may never know. When God moves in one life, He rarely stops there. He multiplies impact. You are becoming a wave, one that begins quietly in the deep and grows into a tide that sweeps across shores of darkness with light. This is the ripple of glory. The transformation God has worked within you was never meant to stay hidden. Every lesson learned, every scar healed, every moment of divine rescue has purpose beyond yourself. You are the spark that will ignite torches in others. The same hope that once lifted you from despair will soon pour from your words, your actions, even your presence. When light walks into a room, it doesn't announce itself, it simply illuminates. That's you now. Your story carries fragrance, holy evidence of survival. When you speak, it won't just be conversation, it will be impartation. People will feel peace when they hear you, because heaven's residue lingers in your tone. You will become a living altar, where those lost in darkness can come near and find warmth again. This is what happens when one life fully yields to God. Personal healing becomes collective revival. As Jesus declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 16, "Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father." You were not called to shine for attention, you were called to shine for direction. Your light is not a spotlight, it's a lighthouse. There are souls adrift in storms, and your obedience becomes the beam guiding them home. Some will never read a Bible, but they will read your life. Your forgiveness will preach louder than sermons. Your peace will convict more deeply than words. When you live from that awareness, every act of kindness becomes ministry. A simple smile becomes a seed of hope. A shared word becomes water for dry hearts. The ripple of glory flows not through grand gestures, but through consistent love. Heaven's power wears humility as its cloak. It moves quietly, yet powerfully, just like you will. Now pause, chosen one, and look around at the lives connected to yours. Family, friends, even strangers, all of them are within your sphere of influence. You are the first domino in a line of transformation. When you stand, others find strength. When you praise, others learn to worship. When you give, others dare to believe abundance is possible. Every action creates spiritual momentum. That's why what you do here matters. If this message has spoken to you, if it has breathed courage or clarity into your spirit, let that gratitude become action. When you like this message, you're adding one more spark to a fire that travels further than you know. When you share, you're not promoting a page, you're planting a seed. Each share is a bridge for another heart to encounter what you've just experienced. You may never see their face, but heaven will record your obedience. And when you comment, your words become part of the testimony. Let your comment be a reflection of what you feel, your breakthrough, your gratitude, your faith. Every comment turns this message from mere text into a living conversation between heaven and earth. If your heart feels stirred to go further, to help carry this light farther, then your donation, no matter how small, is oil for the lamp. Every drop matters. It keeps the message alive, allowing it to reach those standing on the edge of despair, needing a voice that reminds them God still moves. Giving doesn't diminish you, it multiplies the light you helped ignite. You become a silent partner in every life this message touches. And yes, subscribe not out of habit, but as a commitment to stay connected to this divine flow. The journey of faith is continuous, and staying connected means you won't miss the next wave heaven releases. Like staying close to a campfire on a cold night. Remaining near this flame keeps your spirit warm and aware. The ripple of glory is not a spectacle, it's a spreading. One heart touched by God becomes 10. 10 become 100. And soon, entire generations feel the warmth. Revival doesn't begin in crowds, it begins in hearts that dare to stay open. You are one of those hearts, chosen one. Understand this, you are no longer just a receiver of light, you are a carrier. When you walk into rooms, darkness recalculates. When you speak peace, confusion retreats. When you love without condition, heaven manifests. The glory of God is not descending from the sky, it is rising from within you. And so, let this message be more than words. Let it be the start of a movement, a ripple that begins in your heart and travels into eternity. Chosen one, the air around you feels different now. It's as though creation itself knows that something long delayed is finally drawing near. The atmosphere hums with expectancy, like the stillness before a dawn that is moments away from breaking. You are in the final stretch, the place where faith becomes sight, where promises begin to take on form and weight. Every prayer, every fast, every act of obedience has led to this moment. Heaven's preparation meets earth's fulfillment. But understand this, the final stretch is never the easiest. It's the moment just before breakthrough, when pressure intensifies, when fatigue whispers louder than faith, and when the temptation to give up seems almost noble. Yet that is precisely why it is called the final stretch. It is not the beginning of struggle, but the end of it. You are not failing, you are finishing. The last moments of a test are often the most deceptive. They disguise themselves as silence, convincing you that nothing is changing. But in truth, It is when the seed begins to sprout beneath the soil, hidden, unstoppable, inevitable. You've been buried long enough. The roots are strong now, and the shoot is ready to pierce the surface. What has been concealed in prayer will soon be revealed in power. Chosen one, breathe. You have carried this journey with endurance and grace. You have learned to worship without music, to pray without words, to believe without evidence. And because you did not give up in the middle, heaven has marked you for completion. The story that began with tears will end with testimony. As the author of Hebrews reminds us in the 12th chapter, 1st verse, let us run with endurance the race set before us. This is the posture of the final stretch, steady, not hurried, focused, not frantic. You don't sprint blindly, you run with divine rhythm. You've learned that the goal is not speed, but consistency. Not applause, but obedience. The pace of purpose is not measured by human clocks, but by heaven's heartbeat. Every step you take now carries eternal echo. You may still feel the remnants of exhaustion, the residue of old battles clinging to your soul. But look closer, there is also strength that wasn't there before. You have been forged by fire, strengthened by stillness, and matured by waiting. The very things that once wounded you have become your endurance. You can feel the shift within, peace where panic once lived, clarity where confusion once ruled. That's the sign you're near completion. In this stage, distractions will come dressed as opportunities. The enemy often throws imitation blessings just before the real one arrives. But discernment has been sharpened in you. You can now sense the difference between divine timing and deception. Don't settle for what merely looks like fulfillment. Wait for what feels like peace. God's blessing never brings anxiety, it brings alignment. This final stretch also calls for reflection. Look back not with regret, but with recognition. See how every detour prepared you, how every disappointment redirected you. What once felt like random chaos now reveals pattern and purpose. The hands that seemed to delay you were actually guiding you into greater precision. Nothing was wasted, not a tear, not a trial, not a season. Every step carried divine instruction. You will notice how everything begins to converge. Past experiences, once disconnected, suddenly form a map. Conversations you forgot resurface with new meaning. Even wounds you thought were irrelevant now become bridges of empathy for others. This is what it means for all things to work together for good. Heaven never misplaces pain, it redeems it. And yet, chosen one, do not rush the final moments. Sometimes the slow unfolding is mercy. God lingers over the masterpiece before the unveiling. The painter's last strokes are not careless, they are careful. Likewise, this final stretch is where details are perfected, where timing matures. The delay you feel now is polish, not punishment. Soon, the pace will quicken again, momentum will return, but when it does, you will move with purpose, not panic. You will walk into promises with the calm of someone who knows the cost of getting here. You will speak with quiet authority because your voice has been tempered by trials. You will lead with compassion because you remember what the waiting felt like. So keep walking, keep breathing. The sound you hear in your spirit, the steady rhythm of faith, is heaven's countdown. What was once a distant promise is now a forming reality. The labor pains are almost over. The new season is crowning. You don't need to force it. You only need to finish. The same God who began this work in you is the one who will bring it to completion. The final stretch is not about proving yourself, it's about trusting the one who has already proven faithful. Chosen one. Your horizon is glowing. Keep your eyes forward, your heart steady, and your spirit anchored. The finish line is not a distant dream, it's a few breaths away. Chosen one. You have reached the moment where promise turns tangible, where what was once spoken in whispers now stands before you in full color. The miracle is no longer a vision, it has become reality. You have walked through shadows, waited through silence, endured through fire, and still your faith remained. Now heaven honors that endurance. The story that once looked broken has come together in perfect symmetry. You are standing inside the very prayer you once cried out for. The days of wondering when are giving way to the days of now. This is the unveiling. What you held in hope, what you guarded in faith, has matured into sight. You may find yourself overwhelmed, unsure whether to laugh or weep, because the glory that surrounds you feels too vast for words. Yet, this is what happens when God steps in. He doesn't merely restore, He exceeds. He fulfills promises in such fullness that your only response is awe. Think of how long the journey has been. The detours, the dark nights, the internal battles you never voiced. Every step was sacred, though it often felt painful. The purpose of waiting was not delay, but depth. God was shaping you to hold what you now receive. Had the blessing come sooner, it might have crushed you. But now, your spirit is strong enough to sustain it. This miracle is not a reward, it's a responsibility, proof that endurance bears fruit in its appointed season. You've entered a holy stillness. The noise that once surrounded you fades because peace now speaks louder. Every anxious thought that fought to control your mind has been silenced by divine completion. The pieces of your life, once scattered and misunderstood, have formed a masterpiece. What others saw as chaos was choreography. Every fall was a step in the divine dance toward fulfillment. It is written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verse 37, "No word from God will ever fail." That truth now lives in you. The word He spoke has survived every storm, every lie, every delay, and still stands. The promises that seemed buried have risen just as He said they would. You are living evidence that His word does not return void. Heaven watches with joy as prophecy becomes testimony, as expectation becomes embodiment. Chosen one. This miracle is not isolated. It carries echoes. It will flow through you and touch those around you. The same grace that lifted you will ripple outward, healing, awakening, restoring. What God begins in one life never ends there. You are a vessel, a living channel of divine continuity. The light shining through you is meant to guide others who still walk in their own waiting. Your story has become a map for those searching for hope. And as you look at what God has done, humility fills your heart. You know it wasn't your strength that carried you here. It was mercy steady, undeserved, relentless mercy. Grace built bridges where your effort could not. Love filled gaps that your wisdom couldn't comprehend. The miracle you now hold isn't proof of your perfection, it's proof of His faithfulness. Even in this moment of arrival, you sense something greater still stirring. Miracles are not endings, they are beginnings of deeper callings. The blessing you've received is also a mantle, a new assignment wrapped in answered prayer. You were not brought here to rest alone, but to reign in purpose. Fulfillment is not a resting place, it's a launching pad. You have become what you once prayed for, a living testimony that God still intervenes in human stories. You are no longer the one waiting for proof. You are the proof. When people see you, they will see what it means to endure, to believe, to trust even when logic said quit. They will see that miracles still rise from ashes, that light still breaks through impossibility, that hope is never wasted. Now the horizon opens before you, new territory, new dreams, new possibilities. The same God who fulfilled this promise will speak again. The cycle of faith continues, but this time you walk differently, stronger, wiser, anchored in certainty. The fear that once paralyzed you has been replaced by assurance. You no longer ask, "Will God come through?" You declare, "He already has." Chosen one, let peace settle deep within you. You've crossed the threshold. The waiting season has become a witnessing season. What you once longed for, you now carry. And as you stand in the light of answered prayer, lift your eyes once more, not to look back in regret or forward in worry, but upward, in worship, because now you know when God steps in, everything changes. The miracle doesn't just rise, it lives, breathes, and walks with you. It transforms you from seeker to sender, from broken to builder, from chosen to crowned. You are the living proof that heaven keeps its word. And this is your rising. Chosen one, take a deep breath. You've walked the full journey through fire and silence, through valleys and glory, and you've come out radiant. What began as a whisper of hope has become a living declaration when God steps in. Miracles rise. You are no longer the one waiting for change. You are the evidence that change has already happened. But this isn't the end, it's a beginning. Every word you've received, every truth that has stirred your heart, is a seed planted in your spirit. Let it grow. Let it produce fruit in your actions, your choices, your words. The same light that healed you is meant to shine through you. Someone else is waiting to hear what you've now lived. If this message has spoken to you, if something within you has awakened, then let gratitude be your response. Like this message as your way of saying, "Yes, I've seen God move." Every like is a small candle added to a greater fire of faith spreading across hearts. Share it with someone who needs to know that miracles are still real. You never know whose midnight might end because of a single act of kindness from you. Take a moment to comment below. Let your words become part of the testimony. Tell what part of this journey touched you most. Or simply declare, "My miracle is rising." Your comment might be the reminder someone else has been praying for. And finally, subscribe. Stay connected to this stream of divine encouragement. Each new message carries fresh oil, new revelation, and timely hope. When you stay connected, you stay in rhythm with heaven's heartbeat. Chosen one, this is not goodbye. This is your continuation, the next chapter of glory unfolding. Go forth in strength, shine in faith, and never forget when God steps in. Miracles don't end, they multiply.